I was suffering before that, mile 23, unfortunately. When I came up at Canary Wharf, it was about mile 19, 20 where I really started to struggle.
Hi, I'm Rupert Bonington from Mountain Fuel Sports Nutrition. We're the UK's most innovative and effective sports nutrition brands, aimed at endurance sports and helping everybody from beginners to elites to achieve their goals. This is the first part of a two-part series where we explore two very different people's takes on marathon fueling. First being experienced marathon runner Callum Parkinson. He's just run a PB at London Marathon, and he's also the co-host of the Local Runners podcast, which is a great listen for all of those that are into their running pods. Welcome to Fueling for Marathons. So, how many years have you been running?
So I started running in 2012. So that's been 12 years. Started running just to get fit, ready for my wedding, and then the book.
All right.
From there.
Super. And so when did you actually do your first marathon?
My first marathon was in 2016, which was Manchester Marathon.
Yeah. And can you remember your time?
I think I can. 3 hours, 12:50, I think it might be.
Oh, all right. So that was still pretty rapid for your first marathon.
I was going for 3:05 to try and get a good age to get into London, but my pace blew up a little bit, as it does for the majority of people. 20.
Yeah. So at the time, can you remember, did you kind of think much about kind of sports nutrition? Can you remember what you actually did?
I remember I used shot blocks for the first time. I didn't train with them. I didn't train much with them compared to what I do now. But I remember during the marathon, I had 6 of the shot blocks. I'd cut them up, and they were just so difficult to get in and on board.
Yeah.
And I think by the time I got to mile 20, I was completely depleted.
Yeah.
Everyone handing jelly babies out, any sort of food that someone had put out, I was just grabbing and trying to get hold of. I think I did try and take some water on board. I did walk quite a lot as well.
That's kind of one of the issues with the shot blocks. All that kind of product is that you need to be drinking loads of water with it. And I suppose in the marathon, you try to run really fast, stopping at all the water stations all the time and trying to take it on board is hard, yeah. So as far as your kind of like just normal kind of nutrition, daily kind of food-wise, was your diet much different then to it is now? Like as far as like say in the build-up to the marathon?
For my first marathon, I saw the amount of miles that I was doing. I could basically eat like a king, and I did. I ate quite a lot. I didn't eat very healthily back then. I generally ate a lot of, not rubbish, but didn't really look after the nutrition from anything other than general meals, sandwiches, quite a lot of carbs, and that's changed a lot in the last 8 years.
Did you do anything kind of special the night before or on the morning of the race?
In the night before, I had pasta or pizza. I think that was one thing that everyone was going on about. I still doesn't know. For the morning of the race, I can't really remember what I had. I remember drinking quite a lot of water in the morning. But apart from that, no, I can't remember breakfast. Breakfast might have just been like Cocoa Pops on like toast or something like that.
Yeah, something handy in the hotel or whatever, or wherever you were staying, yeah. We mentioned earlier about you doing the London Marathon. We're talking 7 years between the first marathon and this marathon. So what do you think has kind of been different? Like we say start off with like your kind of normal food and nutrition that you have in the kind of week before. What's the difference been?
Mainly the difference for me has been the knowledge getting from working on the podcast, speaking to so many guests, getting a lot of information. The people that host it with me, so Sean Warburton, has now done 49 marathons. Katie Kay, she's done I think 7 or 8 now.
Yeah.
David Norman's won Manchester twice, 2 years in a row, 2012 and 2013. I think the main thing that I've changed has been actually looking at what I'm putting in my body. So nutrition for actually, say that 2-week taper, knowing that I'm not going to run a lot, didn't really change my diet too much. But then from the Monday, I did do the carb depletion, the Monday of the race. So I add around about 50 grams of carbs per day, a lot of protein, a lot of fats. And on Thursday, instead of just eating absolutely tons straight away. I just started to go back into my normal diet. So that might be, I think I had egg on a bagel for my breakfast, maybe a banana mid-morning. I think I had chicken and pasta bake on the Thursday for my dinner, and then for my tea, some chicken and rice and veg.
And then what about the morning of the actual marathon itself? What did you do there?
So I had a porridge pot because we were staying in a hotel. So I practiced with porridge all the way through my training. Anytime I'm doing a big session, I've always had porridge. I had porridge with Nutella. I made sure I had that 3 hours before, kind of see that 3 hour gap to make sure that I've digested everything. So maybe sipping a little tiny bit of water before then. Not really overloading with food, but the carb loading should have been done the day before.
What about the actual, because there's quite a lot of time between when you kind of set off, especially with something like London, where you kind of set off to go to the race, you kind of find your pen, all that kind of stuff. How do you cope with that kind of the difference in time? You said you kind of ate 3 hours before, but you kind of have to get into your areas quite early, don't you? So did you kind of take anything on board pre-race, like in that kind of shorter period of time?
No, so from my breakfast at 7, we then met downstairs, we got the train, the underground, and then the train to Blackheath, walked in. I think we got into our pen somewhat past 9, so we had about an hour. Unfortunately, the queues for the toilet were ridiculous in the yellow wave pen. So we were stood around for around about 40 minutes just to get in. And then I think as soon as we'd been to the toilet, there was 4 of us together that were in the same wave. So we just hung around together and then got rid of everything into lorries and then went straight to the start. So my mind was quite occupied with having friends there. I think there's a big thing as well for making sure that whatever I'm doing on race day morning, that 3 hour gap, trying to replicate that in training as well. If I can do that on a Sunday morning, before, obviously, depending on what time I'm going to go out and do my long run. I think as long as you're doing that and making sure that you know then that within 40 minutes you're going to take on a gel and take on that fuel when needed.
What about the actual run itself? What was your kind of your strategy, and were you able to kind of follow it?
For nutrition, it was always going to be the same as what I did in Manchester last year, which was a gel at 6 mile and non-caffeine. So it was non-caffeine at 6 mile, non-caffeine at 12, caffeine at 18, and caffeine at 22.
And is that the natural plus that you use, or is that
the hydro ones? Yeah. So been practicing with them all the way through training. I've got the new ones that have got I think they've got the increase in carbs now. So we've been practicing them in training. I actually forgot to take a gel at mile 22. I don't know why, but as soon as I got to about, I think I got just before mile 23, and I was like, I've got a gel. And I thought, right, I need to take it. And I started to take it, but I started to get a little bit of a stitch, so I only had half and then discarded it. I knew that if I tried just getting it all in, it would have only been a bit of a placebo effect. I don't think it would have got into my system within them 3 miles, but you got all the way to the end anyway.
I was looking at your pace because you ran a PB, you went off hard, and it definitely that last kind of, I think you even said your message from about 20 miles was a challenge. So if you'd have managed to get that last regular gel in, you'd have probably avoided the stitch. And do you think you'd have kind of felt a bit stronger, a bit kind of better for that final few miles?
I was suffering before that, mile 23, unfortunately. When I came up at Canary Wharf, it was about mile 19, 20 where I really started to struggle.
Do you think that was affected of your pace?
Yeah, definitely. I went off a little bit too quick in probably the first 10k. I think I was about a minute and a bit under what I needed to be. So I tried to then pull it back, but that didn't really work. My GPS was way off. I think by the time I'd got to before Canary Wharf, where everything goes completely crazy anyway, I think I was about 0.3 of a mile over on my what I was remembering. 5 mile was 32.25. So I was constantly doing that, looking at my hand, because I did have it written down, but then it had gone off with all the sweat. Yeah. So I'm trying to do maths, and then everybody knows you can't do maths when you're running. So I'm trying to add up 32.25 and I'm adding it up and it was just going wrong. And then I remembered, right, well, it was 104.50. Right, let's try and work on that. So, yeah, I think if I had the gel a little bit earlier, it possibly could have got me through a little bit more, but I don't think anything would have made me go a little bit quicker there.
Yeah.
I think it was
So how many gels did you have in total? Did you have
4.
4? So that's 120. And you did it in 220.
I had 4.
Yeah.
I had 4 overalls, where I had 2 carb and 2 caffeine.
Yeah. So the only thing I would have possibly done there is maybe actually had one about kind of 15 minutes before you set off. I would have potentially had one then, because you've obviously been standing around for 3 hours. You then go off hard, like you said. You're already kind of eating into your glycogen stores. You've gone up hard, depleted them further than you thought. So if you'd actually had something on board that initial bit, then potentially that could have offset some of the stress. But obviously, you're running a PB, you're running faster than you have before. So it's always going to be in the pain cave at some point, isn't there? And I think that's the balance, isn't it?
I think the plan was to take a gel beforehand, but like an idiot, I didn't pack the 5th gel, so I couldn't take it anyway. But it was the plan to have one beforehand. But we spoke about this on the pod on the last episode that you were on when we spoke between us all, and that was the plan for me to have that extra gel.
Yeah.
My only worry with it was I didn't know whether to, because I've not really practiced it in training.
Yeah.
Having one beforehand and then setting off, it's like, oh, will I get a stitch? Will it make me go to the toilet at mile 2? I think it's one thing that I definitely need to put in a bit of a lessons learned. I may even start to practice that with some of the other races that will come up this year. Just having one 15 minutes before.
I would definitely try that if I was you. Definitely. And then what about at the end? Do you ever take any recovery fuels with you? Do you have anything immediately after, like when you do a race?
Yeah, so normally for any races that I do locally, even when I do a session, I have a recovery powder. The London Marathon, I didn't take any recovery powder with me because I didn't have any containers that could possibly hold it. The last time I did London, I did have a recovery shake straight after. However, I don't think that helped me that day. I was well and truly. I had a bottle of Coke, full fat Coke, a Red Bull, a Lucozade, a water. I think I had far too many beers a few hours after.
Brilliant. So what would you say, what kind of advice would you give? Like, say somebody going back to when you first started doing your marathons, if you could kind of go back to your first self, what advice do you think you'd give yourself that would kind of enjoy the runs more, enjoy the races more, and kind of maybe get more out of them sooner?
So if we're talking just about marathons, I'd probably say making sure that I'm practicing my nutrition and my fueling all the way through training. Doing a marathon and having a 12, 16-week block is a lot of time and it's a lot of commitment for something to go wrong on the day if you've not practiced exactly what you need. Making sure that you're using the fuel that's right for you as well. I've been using mountain fuel now for the last 3-4 marathons. So I did a London virtual, I did London 2022, Manchester 23, London 24. Practiced it all the way through training. Order the big blocks for the big packs of 30.
Yeah.
So I've always got a fair few to go through. And just making sure that nutrition-wise, even outside of any gels or anything like that, making sure that you're looking after yourself during the training. I had a bit of a wobble in the middle of this block where I ran Trafford 10K and I was over a minute slower than last year. The big thing that I looked at was my weight. And what I was doing was I was just eating too much rubbish because I was doing the training and burning the calories. I weren't eating correctly.
Yeah.
I then dropped half a stone, then did a harder 10K and I was faster than the one at Trafford. So making sure that nutrition's right all the way through your training, anything that you're putting into your body. It depends how serious people get as well. If you're out for just wanting to complete something, obviously make sure that you've got the right nutrition. But make sure you just practice things. If you're going to do your long runs, practice taking stuff on board and making sure that you at least try. And you've got the Mountain Fuel have the taster packs. We spoke about this on
Yeah.
on your episode, and the taster packs are fantastic. The amount of people that we spoke to that have gone, I'm going to order the taster packs and see which ones I like. And one of the lads that ran, Gavin Brown, he did that with the taster packs and ended up ordering quite a few that he liked.
Brilliant. Well, no, I really appreciate all that advice. That's really, I think it'll be really useful for folks starting out and the experienced runners. You know, you've got a lot of experience now. So thank you very much for your time. Good to catch up, and well done for the weekend.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to speak to you. I've had a good debrief now.
Super. Anyway, catch him soon.